Hey friends, what's up? What do you want me to tell you? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yurches, Daf 18, Daf Chai, Daf Yurches, Daf 18 of Masechet Moed Katan. Friends, who can tell me what Daf Yurches talks about? All sorts of stuff. Fingernails. Alright, fingernails are fun. Shaving mustaches. A mustache makes or breaks a beard, man. Makes or breaks a beard. Yeah, remind me to tell you about the window of opportunity. Yeah, the window of opportunity. A mustache makes or breaks the beard. When it gets to the point that the mustache starts interfering with your ability to consume food, that's when you got to make a decision. Like, how committed are you? How committed are you? Because without a mustache, there's no beard. That's the yesod. And then we talk about weddings and marriages and stuff. So, what do you want me to tell you? Friends, let's get started. Daf Yurches Amud Aleph, 2 lines into the page. Pinchas, Achvad Amar Shmuel. Apparently Shmuel had a brother Pinchas. Isur Bei Milsa. And Pinchas, somebody passed away in his family. He was sitting Shiva. All Shmuel the Mishal time Yemine. So Shmuel went to visit Pinchas, his brother. Chazinu le Tufre Davu Nefishon. Shmuel noticed that Pinchas's fingernails were too long. Okay, Omarle. So Shmuel says to him, "Amalo shakadlu. How come you didn't cut your fingernails?" So Omarle. So Pinchas says, "Ibedide ava mi mizalzeles bei kule hai." So Pinchas says to Shmuel, he says, "No, if it was you, Shmuel, if you were sitting Shiva, you think I would ask you about your fingernails?" So and it was like a what's it called? Faux pas, when you mess up. So it was chaval because it was like a big mistake that Pinchas mentioned it. Visur Bei Milsa b'Shmuel, and then Shmuel was now a mourner. So Shmuel went to visit his brother Pinchas, who was mourning. He asked Pinchas about his fingernails. Pinchas says, "What? If you were mourning, would I ask you about your fingernails?" Sure enough, the next thing you know, Shmuel's mourning. O Pinchas achva l'mishul time emine. So Pinchas went to visit Shmuel, who's now sitting Shiva. Shaklinu letufrei, chavtinu leape. And Shmuel took his fingernails and threw it at his brother Pinchas. Amarle, leizlach briskus l'sfasaim Pinchas. Haven't you ever heard of briskus l'sfasaim? That there's a covenant that is made with the lips, that keilu words are meaningful. Damar B'Yochanan, as Rabbi Yochanan says, how do you know that there's a covenant that is made with the lips? Shenemar, as the pasuk says, by Akedas Yitzchak, Avram says to Yishmael and Eliezer, Vayomer Avram El Nairav, that Avram says to his lads, Shvulachim po'em achamor, stay here with the donkey, Vani vanar nelcha adko, and then me and the lad, i.e. me and Yitzchak, will go over there. We'll bow down and we'll come back to you. And sure enough, what happened? Both Avram and Yitzchak came back, right? Meaning the idea was that Avram, of course, was going to sacrifice Yitzchak, but that, the Eibishter had different plans. And Avram tells Yishmael and Eliezer, we'll be back. And sure enough, it happened. They were back. So there is some kind of a covenant that is made with words. That words matter, and therefore, in the context of Pinchas and Shmuel, Pinchas mentioned to Shmuel, "What if you were sitting Shiva, would you cut your nails or whatever?" And sure enough, Shmuel, before you knew it, was sitting Shiva. So, Sover mine diyad in the regel lo. So they thought to say, okay, maybe, right, because we had said that Shmuel said, right, at the end of the daf yesterday, we said that according to Shmuel, you're allowed to cut on Chol Moed your fingernails as well as when you are a mourner. So they were thinking, what does it mean you can cut your fingernails? It would cut your nails. You can cut your fingernails, but not necessarily your footnails, because the fingernails are more prominent. The footnails, I guess, you can get away with more, I guess, when it comes to your feet, because I guess mistama, they're not as visible as your fingers, I guess. Amr of Onon Bar Tachlifa says, Rav Onon Bar Tachlifa, the Didi Mefarshli Mini de Shmuel, that it was explained to me what Shmuel was getting at, Loshna Diad V'Loshna Deregel, and that when he says that you're allowed to cut the nails, it's the fingernails as well as the toenails. Weiter. But you're not allowed to use like scissors or mistam also nail clippers, and you can't. I assume what it means. You can't use an instrument, right, to remove the fingernails. I guess maybe have to use maybe your teeth. That is. It says of Shem Bar Abba. It says of Shem Bar Abba that he was by Rabbi Yochanan in the Beis HaMedrash and Chol Moed. Vishaklinu l'tufrei b'shinei, and Rabbi Yochanan bit his nails on Chol Moed. V'zarkinu, and threw them away. Shmamina tlos. And we learn from that anecdote, from the fact that Rabbi Yochanan bit his nails on Chol Moed and threw them away. So we learn three things. Shmamina mutali totziponayim b'chol shamoed. So we learn that you're allowed to cut your fingernails on Chol Hamoed. We also learned that the fingernails aren't particularly disgusting. As Rashi says, if they were disgusting, he wouldn't put them in his mouth. So I guess then fingernails are not that disgusting. And we also see that you're allowed to throw them, because apparently Rabbi Yochanan was biting his fingernails and then throwing them on the floor. Ini, are you really allowed to throw your fingernails? That there are three things that are said about fingernails. Hakov and tzaddik. If you bury your fingernails, big tzaddik. Sorf and chosid. If you burn them, chosid. Zork and rashab. If you throw them, nudnik. Time of my shematav arlein isha ubra v'tapil. So the Gemara, meaning what was the kasha? The kasha is, how could it be that Rabbi Yochanan was throwing the fingernails on the floor? I thought only nudniks throw the fingernails on the floor. Rabbi Yochanan was not nudnik. So the Gemara answers, well, if you think about it, time am I? What's the reason behind why you're not allowed to throw fingernails on the floor? Well, if a pregnant woman were to step on or over the fingernails, well then she might have a miscarriage. And so therefore that's why we don't throw the fingernails on the floor. But it's not so common for a woman to be in the Beis HaMedrash, and therefore it was sort of a what's it called, an acceptable risk to throw the fingernails on the floor of the Beis HaMedrash, because there weren't so many women over there. But one second, but I mean, from time to time, maybe they collect all the fingernails from the floors of the Beis HaMedrash and they throw it outside, and maybe over there a woman might step on it. So came the ishtini. But since it moved places, right, the fingernails were inside and now they moved somewhere else, I guess their potency has subsided. Alright, it says reviewed in the name of Rav that there was a pair that came from Chamsin before Rebbe. Marzutra Masni Zugba Michamsin Lefnei Rebbe. Marzutra says no, it wasn't reviewed in the name of Rav. It was actually a brisa, okay, that a pair of people, of fellows, went before Rebbe. Okay, and they wanted to know, can you cut your fingernails? Or can you cut your fingernails as a mourner? And says either Revuda Marav or Marzutra quotes it from a brisa that if they would have asked him about can you shave your mustache, so he would have also said that is acceptable. Alright, fine. And says Shmuel that they actually even asked him, can you shave your mustache? And he said, yeah, sure. If I'm not mistaken, I think that this isn't necessarily talking about like mourning or anything like that. This is saying that just in general, because there's 5 corners of the face that you're not allowed to like shave with a razor. So we're saying that that doesn't apply to the mustache, I guess. All right. Omer Abitul Safar Mishmei Rav says Abitul the scribe in the name of Rab, Sofa Mizovis Lezovis, that you're allowed to shave your mustache from one end of the mouth to the other. Omer Ami v'Sofa Ma'akev, says Rami, but only if it's preventing you from eating. Says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak that he's very particular, and therefore the whole mustache is considered like it makes it difficult for him to eat. So, alright, what do you want me to tell you? So I guess you're allowed to shave your mustache, particularly if it makes it difficult to eat, but I guess apparently even not, maybe it's okay. Anyway, so friends, the window of opportunity is that I once saw on YouTube a fellow, he's got a very, very nice beard, and his mustache covers his mouth. So the shaila is, how does he eat? So he says there's something called the window of opportunity. The window of opportunity is that there's like a little gap, I guess, between his mustache and his mouth where he could fit morsels in. So he called that the window of opportunity. Okay, it's complicated to have a big mustache. Alright. Paro, you know King Paro from Egypt? So, who Amma. The guy was 1 amma tall. Friends, that's not a lot. That's like 2 feet or less. Pretty short fellow. Uzkano amma. And his beard was an amma. That must have been some sight. Fellow is 1 amma tall and his beard is an amma. His beard is just as tall as he is. Alright, guess it like drags on the floor in your stomach. Ufarmashtoko amma. And his shmekel is an amma vazeris, a little bit more than an amma. It's an interesting sort of body configuration. L'kai mashnemar, as the pasuk says, "Ushfalanoshim yokim Allah," that sort of a short fellow will come upon the Yidden, and that was Paro. Ve'omar abitul safim mishmei derab Paro shoy b'mei Moshe amagushi hoya. He was an amagushi. Shnemar, as the pasuk says, "Hiniyotza amayim v'gomer," goes out to the river. So either it means like a blasphemer or a magician. Alright, what do you want me to tell you? Okay, so we said that these people are, right, the people in the Mishnah are able to do their laundry on Chol Moed. Amar v'asi amar b'yochanan. Mishe'en lo l'cholok echad. Mutal chabse b'chulosh hamoed. You have a fellow who only has, l'maise, 1 article of clothing, so he would be allowed to launder it on Chol Moed. Okay? One second, Rabbi has a kasha. Elu mechabsim b'moed. The following people are allowed to do laundry on Chol Moed. Haba Medinas Hayom v'gomer. So we had mentioned a number of people. Hani'in misheinu el cholok echad lo. That list did not include a fellow who only has 1 article of clothing. So it says Rabbi Yirmiyah, I don't understand. If we take a look in the Mishnah, I don't see it mentioned anywhere somebody who has only 1 article of clothing. So I'm the Rabbi Yaakov, the Rabbi Yirmiyah, says Rabbi Yaakov to Rabbi Yirmiyah, Azbr Allah, I will explain to you Masnisin, the Mishnah, Afagab de Islay Trey Umitanfe. Meaning, in the Mishnah, all these people, we say that they're allowed to do the laundry on Chol Moed. It's talking about people that, even though they have lots of clothing, right? They have more than 1 article of clothing, still they're allowed to do laundry on Chol Moed. But if a fellow only has 1 article of clothing, then he would be allowed to do the laundry on Chol Moed. Shalach Reb Yitzchak bar Yaakov bar Giori mishmei de Reb Yochanan klei pishton mutar l'chabsim b'chul shamoed, that you're allowed to launder linen garments on Chol Moed. Masav Rav asked the kasha mitpachos hayadayim, that hand towels, mitpachos hasaparim, towels of barbers, hani'in klei pishton lo. Yeah, the hand towels and towels of barbers, those you're allowed to wash, to launder on Chol Moed, but not linen garments. So Amar le Abai, so Abai says to Rave, he says, Masnisin afilu d'shar mine. That no, when our Mishnah says that you're allowed to wash the hand towels and towels of barbers, that's talking about no matter what they're made out of. But when it comes to linen garments, then you can do, you could wash any kinds of linen garments on Chol Moed, just that, right, but meaning you can wash any kind of linen garments on Chol Moed, but if you want to wash, let's say, wool garments, you can only wash hand towels and towels of barbers. Towels and barbers, hand towels you can, wash no matter what they're made of. But alternatively, any linen garments you'd be allowed to launder. Omer Barhedja le Didi Chazali Yom Shel Tveria says Barhedja that he saw the sea of the Tiberias, I guess the Sea of Galilee, the Kinneret, Timafkila Mishichle Demoni Kitana B'chula Demoada, that they would take from there baskets full of linen garments on Chol Moed. So he wanted to bring a proof from there that you're allowed to wash, you're allowed to launder linen garments on Chol Moed. So Maskef Labai says that's not necessarily a good proof. Man lemelan de beratzon chacham avdei de mushlo beratzon chacham avdei. Maybe those people who were washing linen garments, you could technically argue that maybe they weren't, it was against the wish of the rabbis. Potentially, you could argue that. So therefore, it's not necessarily a proof to say that you're allowed to wash linen garments on Chol Moed. All right, sounds interesting enough to me, friends. Moving on, we get to a new Mishnah. Ve'elu kozvin b'moed. The following things you're allowed to record, you're allowed to write down on Chol Moed. Kedushay noshim, marriage documents, right? So kilu, right? One way that a man can marry a woman is by writing in a document. Hariyat mikudeshesli b'shtar zo. So you could do that on Chol Moed. V'gittin, divorce documents, Vishovrin, receipts, right? So Reuven borrows money from Shimon and then he pays back Shimon. So Shimon can write Reuven a receipt that he received the money. Vishovrin, I just did that. Daitike are, if a fellow is on his deathbed, so he could write some kind of a will. We could write down some kind of a will. Matana, if you want to give a gift and record that, that's acceptable as well. Ufuzbolin, pruzbol is if somebody lends money, so technically speaking, when Shemitah comes, the lend is forgiven automatically. So you create a pruzbol so that lenders can, their loans should need to be paid back even after Shemitah. Igros shum, letters of evaluation, that if we evaluate a field, so we could record its value for igros mazon, or if a fellow takes upon himself to support his stepchild, so you can write that down. Shtori chalitza, documents documenting that chalitza was performed. Of course, we know that is right. That if a husband and wife were married, they didn't have any children, the husband passes away, so then the wife gets married to the brother. Now, Lamaisa, we're learning Yibum soon. That's going to be interesting. Yavamis. Anyways. So in that case, so if the brother doesn't want to marry the sister-in-law, so then they do a whole thing called chalitza, which is, they break up the potential marriage and then they record that. Umeyunin, who could tell me what meyunin is? Oh my gosh, I didn't even think this through. I just wow, meyunin. Who could tell me what meyunin is? Oh my gosh, I actually have to remember. I just assumed meyun, right? What is freaking meyun? Meyun is talking, holy shnikes, I did not even think about this. Okay, well, let's think about it now. Meyun is like a thing. Meyun is like when you have two brothers, I think, are married to two sisters. Is that what it is, I think? And then the brother dies. Oh my gosh, I just think this through. Give me a second. So, I mean, in its simplest form, I think Meyun is basically if you have a girl who and she's a katana, she's very little, she's young, and her father died. So her father would be able to marry her off, but her father passed away. So now her brother or her mother marry her as a katana to somebody else. Now that connection there between this girl who's a katana and her husband is only midrabanan, and therefore she could, she doesn't need a get in order to leave him. She can just say, look, I don't want to be with you anymore. Now, I think though in the classic case though it applies to yibum, right? Which is that basically if this girl had a sister and the sister was married to some guy, right? Meaning if you have this, and her sister was married to her husband's brother, right? So this Katana was married to, right, Midrabanan, to this fellow. Now, this fellow's brother was married to this Katana's sister. Now, if the brother who's married to the older sister dies, so now the other brother who's still alive needs to marry this Katana's sister. The thing is, he's married to her, and he can't be married to two sisters. So we would say, like, to her, like, hey, why don't you just do Me'un, just say, I don't want to be with you anymore, and break that off, and now the brother can do Yibum with the other sister. I think that's generally the context that Me'un kind of comes up. But anyways, I think in its purest form, Me'un just means that since this Katana is only married to this fellow Midrabanan, she doesn't need a divorce document, she doesn't need a get, she just says, I don't want to be with you anymore, and they could record that on a document. Ushtar Berurin, also if there's like a inheritor, like kids and inheritances, and Bezdin kind of says, okay, you get this, you get that, you can write that down. Because there is Bezdin, that if there were verdicts of Bezdin, they can write that down also, so that they have a record of it. Vigro Sharashus, and some kind of like, I don't know, law or something, you could write that down as well. Alright, friends, you ready for this? Says the Gemara, Amr Shmuel, so says Shmuel, you're permitted to betroth a woman on Chol Moed, because we don't want somebody else to marry her. Interesting. So you can get engaged in Chol Moed, because if you don't hustle, somebody else is going to beat you to it. So seal the deal as quickly as possible, even if it's Chol Moed. Let's say that the following supports Shmuel. That the following things you're allowed to write on Chol Moed, Kiddushay Noshim. We say that that's talking about Kiddushay Noshim. So let's say that's talking about giving a document that says Harei Mekudeshesli. So we see that you can get engaged, you can get betrothed on Chol Moed. My love, Shtari Kiddushin Mamish. So it sounds like we're talking about a getting married with a document. Lo, Shtari Psikto. No, it's talking about recording, documenting. I think that this would be what's called like the Tanoim. Rav Gidol Amarab, Kama Atanos in the Vincho, Kachvacha, how much are you bringing into the marriage for your son? I'm bringing in this amount. Kama Atanosein Levitcho, Kachvacha, how much are you bringing into the marriage for your daughter? This amount. Okay. Amdu v'kidshu kanu, and then when they end up getting married, so then the kinyan kind of kicks in. And these are sort of the things that get acquired with simply just saying it. These tanoim, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. All right, what do you want me to tell you? Okay, fine. So we wanted to say that maybe, right, our Mishna that says that that you can write Kiddushay Noshim Chol Moed sounds like, okay, you could get married, right, but you can do Erusin with the Shtar on Chol Moed. We said not necessarily, could be talking about Tanoim. Okay, fine. Lema Mesayela said that the following supports Shmuel, a nosin noshim b'moed lo b'sulas v'lo amonis, that we do not marry women on Chol Moed, lo b'sulas v'lo amonis, whether it's whether they have not been married before, whether they have been married before, v'lo mi'abmin, and we don't do yibum on Chol Moed mipnei shesimchi lo, because it's a simcha, as we talked about the other day, moijas, right, in Marvin Simcha B'Simcha, although we had all sorts of reasons why you wouldn't get married on Chol Moed. Okay, Seder. Hala'ares Shari, implying that, okay, so you don't get married on Chol Moed, but you can get engaged. Lo Mibaya Kamer. So again, the Gemara says it's not necessarily a proof, because you could say that it's saying not only this, but even this. So Lo Mibaya Le'ares de lo Ka'avid Mitzvah. So the Gemara wants to say, no, what it means is certainly you can't get engaged on Chol Moed, because you're not actually doing a mitzvah of Pur Revu by getting engaged. Ela afilu lisa nami de ka'avid mitzvah also. But even to get married, which you're talking doing a mitzvah of Pur Revu, having children, so you might think that would be okay. Even that you're not allowed to do on Chol Moed, but certainly you can argue that certainly you're not allowed to get engaged on Chol Moed. Tashma Kamanir the Tana de Shmuel was taught in the Beis Medrash of Shmuel Ma'arsin that you are allowed to. We have a brisa from the Beis Medrash of Shmuel that you are allowed to get engaged on Chol Moed avalo konsim, but you don't get married. Ve'ein osin sudas erisin, You don't make meals, feasts of betrothals. We don't do yibum because it's happiness. We don't want to make a moija, shmamina. So we see that, what does the Brisa say? That you are, in fact, allowed to get engaged on Chol HaMoed. So there you have it. To be Amr Shmuel, Shem Yaktimenu Acher. 1 second. Did Shmuel really say that the reason why you're allowed to get engaged on Chol HaMoed is because we don't want to risk that somebody else is going to chaparain and beat you to her? Every single day, Baskol Yotzes V'Omeres, a heavenly voice comes out and says, Bas Ploni Lefloni, that the daughter of so-and-so is going to get married to so-and-so, so the Ploni Lefloni, that the field of so-and-so is going to go to so-and-so. So, does anybody, do you hear it every day, or is it just me? Do you also hear this Baskol every day? I don't know, let us know. No. So according to Shmuel, he says that you can get married you can get engaged on Chol HaMoed because you don't want somebody else to beat you to it. But Shmuel says that every single day, a heavenly voice comes out of heaven and says, what's a good name? Rachel. Right? It says Rachel's going to marry Reuven. So it's kind of like, all right, Rachel's going to marry Reuven. Nobody else is going to, like this shidduch is going to happen. So why is Shmuel concerned that Shimon is going to come and chap Rachel? Reuven's already marrying Rachel. Ella shemayakdmenu acher berachamim. No, what it means is that lest somebody else beat him to it with prayer. Ki had the Rava, like Rava Shamila Ugavra, he heard a certain fellow, that the fellow was praying, V'Omer, and he said, Tizdamanli Planyasa, I really want to marry Rachel. I really want to marry so-and-so. Right? So he was praying to God that he should be able to marry Rachel. We'll call her Rachel. Omerle, Rava says to him, Lo tibai rachmi achi. This is not how you should pray. Look, if Rachel's meant for you, if it's meant to be, so she ain't going nowhere. Y'all will get married. Ve'ilo kafarta b'Hashem. And if Rachel isn't meant to be for you, so then you're going to pray. You're not going to get answered because Rachel wasn't meant for you, and then you're going to get upset, and you're going to deny God. You say God doesn't listen to prayers. So Rava says it's kind of there's really no point of praying like that. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If it's not, then you're just going to get upset. So after Rava gave this fellow that advice, he then heard the fellow sort of tweak his prayer, and he heard him saying, "O iu limus mikama, either I should die before she gets married to somebody else. I can't bear to see her marry somebody else. Let me die before, if she's going to marry somebody else. O I tamus mikame, or let her die before getting married to anybody else, so that I should not have to see it." So we see that he prayed that potentially she should die. So you have Reuven. Reuven wants to marry Rachel. Reuven's not meant for Rachel. Shimon is supposed to marry Rachel. But Reuven's going to pray, I can't bear to see Shimon marry Rachel, so therefore he's going to pray that Rachel should just die so that he doesn't have to see Shimon marry her. And therefore Shimon should just chaparain and marry Rachel even on Chol HaMoed before Reuven has a chance to pray that Rachel should die. Alright? Okay, fine. So Rava says to this fellow, wait, didn't I tell you to just leave it alone? Don't pray about Rachel. Omer Rav Mishum Reuven ben Atztrubili. So it says Rav, the name of Reuven ben Atztrubili. Minator min avim min aksuvim, that from the Torah, from the prophets, from the writings, me'ashem ishalaish, a woman and a man are destined for each other. Minator dichsiv, as it says in the pasuk, Vayan Lavan uVesuel vayomru, that by Rivke it says that Lavan and Besuel said, me'ashem yatsa davar, that it's meant to be, it's from God. So we see that Yitzchak and Rivka were meant to be from God. We see in the prophets that Shimshon's father and mother did not know that he was meant to marry Delilah because it was from God. So we see that this union was from God. It says in the writings that real estate and wealth is the inheritance of fathers. Umi Hashem isha maskolis, and from God comes a gewaldige woman, i.e., that the man and a woman are destined for each other from God. V'amar of Rav Mishum Reuven ben Itztubili, it says Rav in the name of Reuven ben Itztubili. V'amar of Masnisa Tana Sam Takasei was a brisa. Amar Reuven ben Itztubili, that says Reuven ben Itztubili. In Adam Nechsha B'davar Elam Kain, also that if a fellow is suspected of doing epis, mistama he did it. Right? If a fellow is being suspected of doing something, mistama he did it. V'imlo asa kulo asa miktaso. And if he didn't do all of it, well, then he did part of it. V'imlo asa miktaso. If he didn't even do part of it, here her believable asa. So, well, he at least thought in his heart that he was planning to do it. V'imlo here believable asa. So if he didn't even think in his heart to do that thing, ra'achem sha'asu v'samach. Well, maybe he saw other people do it and rejoiced in it. So, alright, so if a fellow is suspected of something, he's not altogether clean. There's it's true to some extent. Most of Rabbi Yaakov Asakasha, v'yachbu b'nei Yisrael dvarim asher lokein al Hashem Elokeim, that the Yidden were basically saying terrible things about God. So we see that it is possible to say, silly things about a fellow that are completely untrue. Well, that's just because the Yidden were just being nudniks. Here we're not talking about anybody trying to be a nudnik. If a fellow, says honestly that a certain fellow did something inappropriate, so we have to assume that there's some degree of truth. That they were sort of jealous to Moshe in the camp and to Aaron, the Holy One of God. Rav Shmuel by Yitzchak Amar Melamed, that it teaches Shekol Echad Kinei Leishta Moshe, that every husband warned his wife, about being with Moshe Rabbeinu. That all the men suspected that their wives would want to be with Moshe Rabbeinu. So does that imply that to a certain extent Moshe Rabbeinu was interested in other people's wives? So also Mishum Sina Udav, that's just they did that out of hate, not because there was anything real there of substance. Tashma coming here. Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi, we saw this in the Gemara in Shabbos, Yeichelki and Misha Choshden also Badavar Ve'einbo, that my lot should be with somebody who is suspected of something, but it's not true. V'amar Papa, the Didi Chajdim V'lo Avobi, and Rav Papa freely said, yeah, I was suspected of stuff, but it was completely untrue. So we see that Rabbi Yossi, Dafka wanted to be suspected of something, but it ultimately not be true. So, on the one hand we're saying that if somebody is suspected of something to a certain degree, it must be true, but then why would Rabbi Yossi say that he is interested in being suspected of something untrue? And Rav Papa says that he was suspected of something and it was untrue. So Lokasha B'Kal the Pasik or B'Kal the Lo Pasik. Well, it depends. If it's a voice that kind of stops, maybe it flares up a little bit but then goes away, so then that would be okay. But if it sort of doesn't stop, well, then you have to be concerned that there actually is some real substance here. B'Kal the Lo Pasik Ad Kama, what's considered a sort of rumor that doesn't stop. Amar Abai says, Abai, Amar Li Aim, that his nurse said to him, Duma demata yoma ufalga. That sort of the talk of the town is for a day and a half. But if it's less than a day and a half, it's not significant. That's only if it's a day and a half straight without any breaks. But if there were breaks, leis lamba. So then it's not really considered real talking. Alright? And if there is an interruption in the middle, so we say it's not like a real sort of rumor. So, but that's only if the reason why he was interrupted was out of fear, that somebody was fear mongering, so that doesn't count. Aval pasuk machmazira lo, right? So if it was out of fear mongering, it doesn't count. And that's also, right, when we say that if it kind of goes away, then it's okay. So that's as long as it doesn't come back. Aval hadar novat lo. But if it sort of goes away and then comes back, so then that's going to be a problem. Now this also, it depends if he doesn't have any enemies. Okay, if he has enemies, then you assume that the enemies are just like making up rumors about him and that they're not true. If he doesn't have any enemies, and it's some kind of rumors are spreading about him, and they're kind of not going away, or they keep on coming back, so then we have to be concerned that there's something serious going on here. Friends, that was Daf Yud Ches, Daf 18 of Masechta Moed Katan. We talked about cutting your nails, right? Really kind of a continuation really from yesterday about that according to Shmuel, you're allowed to cut your nails on Chol Moed and as a mourner. We had that story about Shmuel and his brother Pinchas. We learned that you have to be careful with your fingernails because we don't want, that a woman should chas v'shalom step over them and have complications with her pregnancy. We said that a fellow who only has one garment would be allowed to wash that one garment. Alright, fine. Then we get to writing different things on Chol Moed, different kinds of documents, and then we said that you'd be allowed to get engaged during Chol Moed. That seems to be acceptable. Alright, friends, what do you want me to tell you? That was Daf Yud Ches of Masechta Moed Katan. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.